Robert's Tribeca Trade Group, and this is your end of day recap for not Monday, as I was just going to say, but it is Tuesday, and it is Tuesday the 16th. So, first trading day of the week after a 3-day weekend, and you can kind of tell what type of day it was. Well, maybe a little bit. We'll go over all the movers of the day. And of course, first disclaimer in front of you, everything that we're going through is for information purposes only, not giving out any advice or recommendations. Please read the full risk disclaimer there. But even though we are out, off for 3 days, right? 3-day weekend. It seems like a lot of the trends are still in place, maybe a couple of new things, which we'll go over. But what do I mean by that? Well, it's been pretty nasty breath since we started this year. It actually started a couple days before the end of 2000, the start of 2024. So, we've got a trend of just ugly looking breath, and I won't show it here because we talk a lot about it in the weekend video where we talk about the NYSE McClellan summation index, which has been trending lower over that time. Is just proof to see, what's been going on here. But, you could look at this on a day-to-day basis and you could see there's just a lot more red, when you get to this area of my spreadsheet, right, where you're looking at, I have this sorted, of course, by percentage change from open, so I can see what names are, how names are moving over the trading session. And then, of course, this, and I've got, anything highlighted that's down more than 1%. So we've got really thin or narrow breadth, and a lot of areas, interesting that are starting to break down too. For example, a couple things, I haven't looked at this chart too often, but I've just noticed that PBW, which is a clean energy ETF, has been on the names that have been, or the groups that have been underperforming quite a bit. And you can see like this has really had not much of a bounce towards the end of last year. But just that a bounce, right? No trend change or anything like that. And that is taken out the lows from last year. So it continues to trend lower, right? And then another group, which it seems like people get excited about this, like certain types of emerging markets. It seems like every January, people come in and think, oh my God, it's going to be the year of China, or it's going to be the year of, something else internationally. But, I think this is just proof to tell you, stay away from things, in my opinion, anyway. I don't trade downtrends. I learned very early, in my trading career that do not trade things below the 200-day moving average. They often continue to go in that direction, right? So that's classic trend trading, right? They go down, they break down below the 200-day moving average. Newer traders, or some people who have maybe a 40-year time horizon, I'm joking a little bit, think that that's a good buy because it's going lower and it's cheap. Not if you're trading, 90% of the time, not if you're trading, if you don't have a 40-year time horizon. Again, I'm just throwing 40 years out there to be funny, but yeah, this continues to trend lower, right? And, you have to think about the opportunity cost too. I'm just going to spend a minute here because, again, there's more things going down than there's going up, but I have to think about the opportunity cost, while you're thinking that this is a good buy, because I've heard it a lot, from people. Same thing with, oh my God, Alibaba, the valuation is great. Okay, but it's also in China, right? Which is not the same type of political system. That's so you can't just say, oh my God, the balance sheet looks great in Alibaba. It's also a different completely political system, and they'll control what you do, whether you like it or not. But this is another one. There's no reason to touch this stuff, right? If they're so great, then they at least can get over their 200-day moving average. Did I put something wrong in here? Why is this? Maybe it doesn't even want to show me this, but this is also breaking, right? Again, maybe it could form a little bit of a double bottom if it holds in here, but you need to see confirmation first. But same thing, people don't like people who are buying downtrends, right? They don't like to wait for any confirmation, right? So I could say that maybe this is a double bottom, right? And might bounce. But you always want to wait for that confirmation, because if not, it's trending down, right? And and if you don't believe me, right, this is another one that I heard in the beginning of the year. Oh my God, this NEO is a great setup, right? Well, this is taking out multi-year lows too. This is a $6 stock. So and if you don't think that they can go to zero, they absolutely can go to zero. All right, so let me get back on track. I just thought it was kind of interesting that there are groups that are just not looking good, not looking very good at all. Another one too, which was doing pretty well last year, and you can see it hit that upside version point of control, which is metals and mining, right? And you've got in this ETF, it's an equally weighted ETF, so you've got some steel names in there, you've got some gold miners, you've got and then a bunch of other miners like copper miners and so forth. But this is for a while was hanging around. Reminds me a little bit of the chart of IWM. Oops, let me just reset this. A lot of chart errors with me in this video. But notice that it kind of so it dipped, right? And then a normal dip in an uptrend, it holds these two short-term moving averages, and then it begins to move higher. What you don't want to see is it continue to move lower and break that consolidation. That means something bigger is going on. Now, it could get another test here, 50-day moving average and maybe a gap fill here, but it's certainly not strong. Okay, so I skipped the indices. But I think this chart is kind of what I'm seeing in a lot of charts right now that are showing more strength. We're testing we're either testing or getting close to those highs from either right at the end of last year, and also the top of the value area for January. So that's where we are here for S&P, or if we want to look at SPY, it's kind of the same situation. This did make it a little bit over the highs of last year, but hasn't been able to break out of the January value area. Qs, I think this is kind of funny. For whatever reason, because I have a sick sense of humor, I get. No, I'm just kidding. But the Qs are exactly 0.0 for the year. So even though they had a really good week last week, they are right on the screws of flat for this year. So if some people look at the performance of the Qs and they kind of think about their portfolio, and same, or you could do the same thing with the SPY, which is also very close to the performance in the Qs, just so flat. We'll call that flat. So if you're up for this month, you're doing a pretty good job, right? Because then it gets worse as we go down here. So I'll cover the small caps next, but here's what Qs look like. So they're consolidating. They have to make it through 412.64, right? And immediately we started lower, so that's why even though the nice performance last week, it's just because we started the year on a poor footing, moving lower. But yeah, so we're going to have these tests of resistance, and it's concerning to me that I think it will be harder to break out if we don't start to get some type of participation and just really thin areas of the market. So I don't think that I think something will need to change, right? We're going to need to see more participation in this market. And I can kind of begin to show you a couple things. I mentioned breadth, which we have an indicator for breadth that looks at every day, like volume and advancing and declining names. But here's 4-week new highs versus new lows, right? This is the smallest list I think I've seen so far of the new highs and lows, right? The last day, I was basically off for most of the day on Friday, but I mentioned Thursday was a change of tone, that we started to see more new, just barely more new 4-week lows than new highs. But now look at it. You got 148 names making new 4-week again. This is not 52 weeks, so I keep repeating it just so that and there's only 40 here. So we're getting more things breaking down versus up, and this is 3-to-1 to the downside. So this is not good. And if you're trying to be patient here, I think that's good. But ultimately things have to improve in the internals. It's nice to see, we're going to go to the next group in just a second before the last thing I'll cover is IWM. But look at IWM. It was kind of like that XME chart, right? It kind of, we had this nice move at the end of the year. And so far this year, you've had some digestion, and a couple of days it looked like, even Friday looked like it might be able to turn the corner here. But notice it got rejected, and now it's at the low point of of this year or of this month, right? And if you look at that performance, what is it at this point? right? For small caps, down about 5%. I mean, that's, remember, like normal people, normally people think of corrections as down 10%. I mean, you're halfway there for IWM. You got half of a correction going on there in the small caps. ARC Innovation, look at that ETF. That ETF is down over 10%. I mean, that is a volatile group of stocks, but they are getting creamed. So they've got a correction already. But again, I wouldn't really say, I don't know if 10% is a correction for ARC, because that thing moves pretty decently. So the next group that I wanted to talk about, which is where, you have the strength. And if you were an if your portfolio contained AMD and Nvidia today, you weren't complaining, right? Those two stocks, you look at those, if you only looked at those two stocks today, you would say, wow, this market's on fire, right? But that's what's participating, right? And it's nice because those are two very popular names, right? People like to trade Nvidia and AMD. So that's kind of masking, in my opinion, that there's a lot of weakness outside of what the semiconductors did today. So we'll talk about I will talk about some of these names, but I think that this is the chart of the day, because I think this needs to break 176.86. So I was talking about how this happened in a couple other software names today. I'll go over that, but got right to that top of value, and I wouldn't call that a rejection today, because it's the first time. Today it was up. The semis were up 1.6%. They did touch that on the highs, top of value. So I think that's going to be a great level to watch. But yeah. I've been long Nvidia, so this worked great for me. I'm not complaining about this at all. It's not the only thing that I own, unfortunately, because on a day like this, you wish, oh my God, I've got a huge position in Nvidia. I don't have a huge position, and this was the other name that was really strong in this group. AMD just got off to a very fast start. And I looked at it and I said, well, that's a real nice move. This was on our weekend watch list. I just didn't get a chance to take it. But when I looked at it, just shortly after the close, it was already up 5%. And, I was like, it was right here. I think like right in here. And I'm like, well, I'm not chasing this thing up 5%. And sometimes they just continue to move higher, right? So very nice. Cadence is another one too, that if you look at where this closed for the month, right? So you're going to see this theme as I go through some of these stronger names, right? It goes right to the top of value. Bang. So very easy to watch going forward. Watch what happens at 277.83, right? A few other names, right? ARM, unfortunately, this is also a name that I don't just own Nvidia. Like I said, now I'm making jokes a little bit, but I own this ARM. I thought this might be bad. So it's still kind of an inside day, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this would be the place if it's going to hold. If not, if holds this bar. But sometimes I go into detail about option activity and what my opinion is, but I'll tell you, this thing has been acting great until it started to see option activity. So that's why I'm very cognizant. And I'm also very objective when we see we've seen huge option activity in this name. Ever since we started to see option activity, the thing has gone down, right? If you are a new trader, right, you may think, I got to see option activity in a name. That is completely false. Some of the best names that I see that have really good trending performance, like make news like this, moves like this, don't see a lot of option activity, right? It's better that the stock buyers are in this than the speculative option activity. Again, speculative option activity is great for when there's something going on in a name. When somebody's taken like an activist is taking a stake in a name, you'll often see that there's option activity before. But if you're looking for solid trending names, and this name has seen a little bit of option activity on this move, but for the most part, a lot of times you don't need it. So it's like I said, and the last thing I'll say about that is it's 50-50. It really is. A lot of names that we see option activity is aggressive, swept, bought. It's not because they're doing something on the other side. It's just because the hedge funds are not always right. That's all. But there's plenty of cases where it does work too. So all I'm doing is just trying to give you perspective and something that I've learned, over time. So, so I mentioned cadence. Also another one too, which I don't own anymore, is CAMT, which had a decent day. That moved out of this range too. So that's a stronger performer. Broadcom had a good day too, right? This is going to be hitting some of this resistance in here. So if you bought in here, you might want to be trimming here. Notice that it took out this V pocket, and I think I talked about this in a video at some point last week, saying that could be a great upside target. Notice that got taken out. The cyber names, even though they weren't big performers for the day, CrowdStrike for the week, I would watch 287.69. Right, this thing's holding very strong. Got a little bit extended away from itself, but still holding the 5-day moving average. ESTC is the one that I played today. This was in our watch list. Right, here's what the watch list that I compile every weekend, and then we kind of add to it, even though I didn't add any names. But this is a bit all over the place. In the beginning of the day, we had a lot more names that, the triggers are based on the market web's value areas. So that's why they don't reflect the actual performance. Sometimes the trigger is just a little bit higher based on what the value area looks like. These were the names that were performing. So I did take the ESTC. I did take ST. So again, same thing with like the cadence and the semis and the S&P and the Qs. It's got to get through this resistance here at 116.77. All right, so that's important. What else did I want to go over? Where I saw some strength too, I can go over 3 or 4 other cyber names, but I'm going to move on a little bit. Where I saw a lot of strength on Friday was in a lot of IT names. I don't know if that was because of Infosys, which had good earnings, but that's how they classify IBM as IT services. And look at this break higher. Right, not much hesitation through that value area. Another one too, I think to watch is ACN, which had a inside day today, right? EPAM was another one that went that had a big move on Friday. Too much of a move down, I would say, today. I would have liked to see it hold that top of value 302.85, but you can continue to pay attention to it. Another one too, which is just software, which is Workday. This had an inside day based on that candle, the body of the candle inside this one. Right, so that's another one that I'm watching. A new one, which is Parsons. This is PSN. Right, not a good looking candle. I did not get involved in this one today. It got a broker's upgrade this morning, but I don't like to see that type of price action. I was watching to see. I had an alert. Once it kind of broke in here, I had an alert like right around this 65.60 to see if it was going to retake this, but it didn't. So no position. No need to do anything at this point. And I'll watch to see if buyers come in. But again, you don't want to see a name go up like that, in my opinion, and just sellers kind of really take control of it. What else? Oh, ST&E. I tried this. I did not hang on to this just because I'm using, what I'm seeing, what I talk about daily in these videos and what the internals are doing. If a name isn't acting exactly how I want it to, I get very picky and I take the name off. So I wanted to see this close above 1779, just like some of those other examples. It didn't do it. And I would rather be sitting with less positions than more as we're doing this. And I can't believe I haven't mentioned what the dollar did today. If you go to the themes here, right, big dollar strength today, more than usual. Here's what the dollar. So for a while we were trading in this range, right? And we broke higher. So that's a bit of a scary candle, I think, in the dollar. Don't want to see that. Also don't want to see what TLT did today, which was down 1.7%, right? So of course the opposite of this is interest rates. So when TLT goes down, that means interest rates are going higher, right? It's just how a bond works. But if you look at this 1-hour chart, right? Notice last week, right? There's a few times that this thing tried to break higher. Bonds try to turn the corner. There's sellers in here every single time, right at the bottom of the value area for the week. Again, giving you a heads up that there was no strength. there, and sellers were in control every time it tried to bounce. So where is this going to now? Well, I don't have the answer for you. I think it's going to have to hold this, see if it holds this bottom of value tomorrow. There's also the 50-day moving average, but this is not a good look for stocks. And keep in mind, we have been seeing things like VIX call buying. We have been seeing things like put buying in XLK, right? The tech ETF. It's another name. This name's up. Looks like they just came out with earnings here, or preliminary earnings, maybe. Oops. Preliminary revenue above, right? And there was one other. I knew that there was one other name, Rambus, but look at what Rambus did. Right, hit that top of value and rejection. So, that's why these things are very important to know where you're going to have some resistance in play. All right, a couple last names to go over that I've got written down here. Did I mention CTSH? I think I did. All right, this one also came a little bit too far in. That's also in the IT services group. I was going to mention Uber because I know a lot of people are talking about Uber. Let's see if it can stay. So this one, you could see on Friday, try to get through the top of value and couldn't really do it. Today it is, right? It's a little bit of a struggle there, but watch that 63.22. And then I think Dash also, even though it didn't do much today, still I think the chart looks pretty decent. Nice break higher. And then now you get the retest, right, in Dash. So I'm definitely watching both of those names. All right, guys, that is it for the live stream. Thanks for joining me, everybody. Also, if you want to see our commentary on a daily basis, you could either sign up for our trading room. If you don't have the time to do that, then what I would suggest you do is go to our Substack page, right, and you'll get these themes that I talk about in real time. ttgtrading.substack.com, right here. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Have a great night. See you tomorrow.